Hello, this is Scot Conway, Ph.D, J.D, 8th degree black belt, author, program leader, seminar leader, corporate trainer, executive, the whole crazy resume. And right now I'm here for mothersraisingsons.com. I have, by the way, been helping parents with their kids and with sons in particular for over a quarter century, over 25 years. I don't know if I look it to you or not, but I am closing in on 50. I'm 48 years old. 49th birthday is coming up not too long from now. And we're looking at the Mast You Live In, this whole idea that, to be a man is being such a terrible thing. And just, we're just taking this apart one little bit at a time. Let's look at the next little bit of this. And by the way, I'm not just ragging on it. I'm giving part of the answer. I'm telling you how we solve this. I'm telling you how we do it right. So this isn't just a rant fest. This is no. Let's do this right. This is going to break it in a different way. It's broken in one direction already. We're just going to break it in a different direction. I just want it fixed. I don't want to be crashing into walls or diving into ditches. I want to drive straight down this road, and I want to drive straight down this road right. Let's take a listen to this next segment.
I had anger issues in high school. I felt like an outcast.
Okay, let's pause. Anger issues. Does anyone not have anger issues where there's things going on, you don't like it that way, you don't know how to express your feelings? A lot of men will use anger, that broken rule thing, and what the real rule is. I have a rule that says I should not be afraid. Well, fear is the real issue. Or I have a rule that says I should not be hurt. Well, then hurt's the real issue. I mean, anyone ever have any fear issues? Anyone have fear affect any decisions in your life? We need to just teach the kids how to deal with their emotions effectively. Boys and girls, men and women. Seriously, I mean, as adults, how many of us could use some help in this? I mean, I have a whole book, Emotional Genius. I have 24 hours of audio training, The Language of Emotions, 101A and 101B, that deals with this stuff. This isn't just a teenage issue. This isn't just a boy issue. This is a human being issue. And a lot of boys, they get lost in this. So let's continue with the clip.
I've been suspended at least once every year I was here.
We would just look for trouble and just try to fight.
Boys are more likely to act out.
I'm going to pause right there for a second. Okay, so you get social permission to be angry, to hide fear, to hide hurt. And when you live in anger, what's going to happen? Well, the reaction to anger, and everyone does this, is try to impose your rule by force. Well, sometimes we do force by yelling, by screaming, by threatening, and sometimes we do emotional blackmail. Sometimes we'll get physically aggressive. And think about this. Now, in relationships, now this is kind of controversial, but this is what the studies have borne out. When we studied romantic relationships, marriages, cohabitation, and such, they've actually found that men and women initiate violence at about the same rate. The number one level of masculine violence initiating is they will push. They'll shove the woman they're in a relationship with. The number one level of violence most women will initiate with is they will start off with throwing something. That's violent too. And those numbers are about equal. So our boys and our girls are having these problems. It's showing up a little bit differently, but it's showing up in both cases. And this is a human thing. This isn't just a boy thing. A lot of boys just get this idea of you just need to stuff your emotion. No, you don't stuff your emotion. You learn how to control your emotion. But you know what? Girls could use the same thing. I mean, seriously, if you've got something going on and you need to go to work, but you've got some emotion, do you show up at work with all of your emotion, or do you show up at work and do your work? Do what you're being paid to do. Of course you do. That's part of having a job. And, sometimes, boys get this idea that they have to do it all the time. But what they really need is a little bit of emotional intelligence, some emotional genius, the language of emotions, have a model for it, have a vocabulary for it, so they can have productive discussions. If they don't want to be all touchy-feely about talking about their emotions, is because they don't have a vocabulary, they don't get a model for it. It somehow seems to be more intuitive for more females to be able to do this than it is for males, and that might be a right brain, whole brain thing, I don't know. But they just need to be taught how to have these discussions, not to have them, but the vocabulary for it, the model for it, so then it can make sense to them. And then they don't have to necessarily be acting out. But yes, boys will tend to behave differently than girls. I don't know if you've raised boys and girls, but if you have boys and girls, you know what? They are different. They're not 100% different. It's like 80-20. It's two overlapping bell curves. You have a lot of women that behave in more masculine ways, a lot of men who behave in more feminine ways, and that's fine. But there is this statistical truism that it's true more often than it's not true. And it's just the reality that we live in. That's the reality we live in. That's the reality we work in. We don't live in and work just with the exceptions. We acknowledge them and we do work with the exceptions, but we can't treat the exceptions like it's the rule. So we need to understand these things. Let's continue with the clip.
They're more likely to become aggressive. Most people miss that as depression or see it as a conduct disorder or just a bad kid.
Sometimes it is a bad kid, to be honest. A lot of times it is a conduct disorder. But when someone's feeling an emotion, here's the basic thing. Willpower is, I will stick to what is right no matter what I feel. All of us feel like doing things. It's an impulse control problem. All of us, sometimes, we don't feel like working. Sometimes we just don't feel like doing things. The fundamental of adulthood is putting responsibility over how you feel. Willpower is sticking to what is right no matter what you feel. Stubbornness is sticking to what you feel no matter what is right. Now, they can look the same. If someone really believes it's right and someone else doesn't, you're just doing it on emotion, you may disagree in some gray zone in between. But when you do know what's right, you control your behavior, you keep it in context, appropriate to your relationships. This whole thing of going out and looking for trouble, that is a hurting person thing. Hurting people hurt people, and they're easily hurt by people. That is a human thing. And while it might show up in a physical way sometimes with guys, and they might sometimes do some rule breaking at a different level, girls do the same thing, and they do it too. Now, think about your own life. What has lingered with you longer, that you got physically hit, thumped, wrestled, or whatever, someone did something physical to you? Or did what lingered longest is something someone said to you, did to you, didn't do to you? Where the physical injury is long since gone, but the emotional scars from the emotional aspects of it are still there. And that's huge. And which one do girls tend to do more than boys? Which ones do girls tend to internalize and live with more than boys? The one that lasts longer. So this isn't a boy-girl thing. This is a human thing. Our boys and our girls are doing this. And this is just a matter of learning, again, healthy models, healthy ways of doing it, healthy insight and understanding, being able to walk that out, having clean definitions that don't get packed with the law of unintended consequences. I know that they mean well with this video. I understand what they're trying to fix. But they are going to be tearing apart the part of it that's working, and they're going to be building this whole other thing that it's just trouble waiting to happen. And the next generation can get messed up by it. And I know a lot of parents, and moms in particular, they want their sons to grow up to be great men. Sometimes once you get out of your head about your kid being your baby boy, you think, okay, this is going to be a grown man. What do I wish men were? And how do I help my son become one of those kind of men? What do I wish my husband was? And hopefully if your husband is that, that's fantastic. But you have a lot of moms who are raising their boys without their husbands. My mother largely raised me and my brother without my dad. They were still married, but my dad was working 7 days a week. He was working 14 hours a day. Basically, she's on her own raising us. So whether you're a single mom or whether you're a mom doing most of the work, having a healthy view of masculinity is huge. It's huge. And then that way you can raise your son to do that. And this whole thing about the acting out and the sign of depression, I would be careful with that. That what we lack is that healthy model to be able to work with our sons and teach them what life is like.